War of words on Twitter between Owen Jones and ardent Remainer Femi Alawal. The exchange happened over Brexit, unsurprisingly, and about who should take the blame for this current mess. Owen first put out a tweet on the hypocrisy of many Remainers. He says, "Objectively, it's very funny that people who call Jeremy Corbyn a Brexiter, even when he backed a second referendum, are going to support Labour for Boris Johnson's hardcore Brexit, or even vote for it themselves. Dark, annoying, but funny." And this is Femi's response, followed up by a reply from Owen. Who was the loudest second referendum Labour voice? Starmer. Can Brexit be stopped now? No. Is a deal the only way to stop no deal? Yes. Could Brexit have been stopped when Corbyn was leader? Yes. Did he spend 30 years supporting Brexit? Yes. Did he support Brexit mid-2016 to mid-2019? Yes. And this is from Owen. People like you intentionally made any option other than reversing the referendum result toxic, including the softest possible Brexit. And now you've ended up backing Boris Johnson's hardest Brexit. Beyond embarrassing, beyond parody, and there's nothing more to say. Now, this went on for hours. I should know, since I had non-stop notifications because my Twitter handle was in the conversation, so it was pretty annoying, but I got a good grasp of what they were talking about. So I'm going to start off with Femi's analysis and then move on to Owen's points, and then finally I'll finish with my breakdown and my analysis for this. So let's start with Femi. So he starts off by saying that Keir Starmer was the loudest voice for the second referendum. I completely agree with that. I agree that he thinks that Brexit can't be stopped, obviously, because it can't. He's also right that a deal is the only way of stopping no deal. I've got no issue with that. I completely agree with all of his points. But then in his tweet, he goes on to say he thinks that Brexit could have been stopped under Jeremy Corbyn. Wrong. Absolutely wrong. No, it couldn't have. Brexit could not be stopped under Jeremy Corbyn. As soon as the referendum happened to leave the European Union, there was no route to remain. Then he makes a quip about supporting Brexit for 30 years. It's not relevant to this argument, just Femi being an asshole. He then goes on to say that he supported Brexit from 2016 until 2019. So Owen's original point, which then Femi responded to, was that he was pointing out a huge hypocrisy among sort of hard Remainers, which is that under Jeremy Corbyn, soft Brexit was a complete possibility. But they threw their toys out the pram and said, we're only going to support Remain. And they essentially undermined Corbyn at almost every turn. Now that it's only going to be either no-deal Brexit or hard Brexit, which is going to be via Boris Johnson's government, there's either complete silence from these sort of Ramonas, FBPEs, Femis, or that, oh, we should get on with Brexit. So I broadly agree with what Owen is saying here. We had hardcore evidence that Remain was never a realistic option. There was never a route to Remain. First off, we voted to leave the European Union. That's a big clue. But over the course of the last 4 years, generally there wasn't much shift in opinion polls. There was no data that generally showed that people's minds had changed in a significant way. Then in 2017, Labour won a historic 40% of the vote on a soft Brexit platform. We then had the emergence of the Brexit Party, who went on to win the European elections. So people like me, Owen, socialists, we saw this years ago, but FBPEs, the Femis, the hardcore Remainers still refused to compromise. Now, a custom union was actually possible had the Liberal Democrats got behind Labour. But for them, it was Remain or nothing. We had a hung parliament, we had an opposition that physically could change things. And only smaller parties backed Corbyn, backed the Labour Party, but much of these Liberals, their energy was on the leadership itself, a lot from the People's Campaign, the Lib Dems, FPP, Femi. Yes, of course, you should criticise the leader where he made mistakes. No one is above blame here, but we generally had a route to stopping no deal, stopping hard Brexit, to mitigate as much damage as possible. That's how you do politics. You essentially got to compromise. But what the Liberals did, they essentially threw their toys at the pram, refused to back Corbyn, and look where we are now. So why are Remainers just realising that Remain cannot be stopped after an 80-seat Tory majority? They obviously lack political integrity, but aside from that, it was always about stopping Jeremy Corbyn from becoming Prime Minister. They knew this was a wedge issue to undermine him, as it would with any Labour leader. So to put it into context, the FPPE, the People's Vote, their campaign was to not leave the European Union, to remain. In reality, we have a massive majority for the Conservatives who are flirting with the idea of a no deal, but it's going to be a hard Brexit. Their political campaign is utterly failed, and yet they have no humility to look at themselves and say, maybe we were wrong too. Most people who voted Remain accepted the referendum result. I voted Remain, I accepted the referendum result. So like I said, this is the biggest political failure from a campaign that I've ever seen. A campaign to stay in the EU, but end up leaving with a no-deal or hard Brexit, and like I said, an 80-seat majority to the Tories. Where is their humility? The refusal to take even a shred of the blame and pin it all on Corbyn when they massively contributed to this. As for Femi, he's an opportunist, an idiot, and he's completely irrelevant. So remember, like, share and subscribe, because we need an independent media for independent voices.